yourself, I know someone who can. Call on her, she's the handyman. Drives through these corridors, toolbox in hand, and she's got the keys to the kingdom. Forgot about her a long time ago, but this place would be a wreck without the handyman. If a door's rusted shut or too big for the jam, she knows the way that it opens. If your brain is on fire, there's a watering can. She knows where it is, 'cause she's the handyman. You can't count your blessings, she can do that too. Just put everything down, she'll do it for you. Put everything down, she'll do it for you. Someone you love's become a different man. She knows how to fix it, she's your handyman. Each door to this kingdom is at her command, and she knows the ones he goes into. If your child is restless, she won't sit or stand. She knows how to help, she's the handyman. She's got a whole bag of tricks, you may know one or two. Just put everything down and she'll do them for you. If you're looking at something that you don't understand, she knows what it is, she's the handyman. It's something we both know, but we don't know its plan. It's a door that hasn't been opened, but she's got the keys to the kingdom.
Recorded in front of a live audience for World Cafe. That was Handyman from Dr. Dog. It's a song from their new self-titled album. I'm Raina Douris, here with Scott McMicken and Toby Leaman of Dr. Dog today. Scott and Toby, welcome back to the World Cafe.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's great to have you here. Before we get into it, Toby, I know you wrote that song for your wife, and you've said you're not a big love song guy, but that most of the songs you wrote for this album are about your wife. So what turned you into a big old softie?
I don't know, just having a little more grace and gratitude and just caring. I mean, I don't know, we've got kids now and stuff, and we both work super hard trying to figure all that stuff out together and how to maintain and how to, I don't know, sometimes it's just tough and and you love it and stuff, but yeah, I don't know, I guess I was in a reflective mood for 4 years or however long it took to write these tunes. Well, yeah, I just kept coming back to it. It's like, oh yeah, we got something cool here, you know?
Yeah. Well, I guess you had some time to think about it, because I know there was a time where we wondered if we would get Dr. Dog back on the World Cafe again. In 2021, you announced that Dr. Dog was done with touring. Obviously, you've played shows since then, but you haven't gone on a tour. How did you come to that decision?
To stop touring?
Yeah.
What do you think, Mickens?
It was a pretty naturally unfolding thing. I think it is like this kind of slow-mo type of shift. You know, there was no sort of definitive moment in time that demanded all things halt. But over the course of time, the idea had begun to percolate, and then the pandemic happened, and it was sort of like a dress rehearsal for life in a whole new way. And I think now I could back engineer an idea that like we just needed that breath to step away and develop as individuals in order to return to it stronger and with better perspective on it, you know. But that wasn't articulated at the time, and we never had the thought that we would stop entirely or stop making new music or anything. So,
I would
yeah,
imagine,
so it just kind of happened.
as a band that has been together and playing shows together for a couple decades, suddenly not touring would leave you. It would feel kind of weird to not be like thinking about a tour, coming off a tour, getting ready for a tour, being on a tour. What was that adjustment like at first?
That part is definitely the weirdest, like not having anything down the pike. Because normally it's like you're either preparing for the tour or you're recovering from a tour. And then it's like, well, there's no tour. What am I doing? If I'm not preparing and I'm not recovering, then I'm just doing this.
Well, what did you do?
I got a job. I had to. I was going nuts.
What's your job?
I do masonry work. So
It's like stone.
yeah, well, yeah,
masonry
stone
work?
masonry work. Oh yeah. Full time.
He's a rock artist.
Yeah.
So it's still rock and roll, yeah.
Definitely. Could not stray from the form.
I'm talking to Dr. Dog on World Cafe today, and I want to talk about the new album in a minute, but you both worked on other projects sort of since the last Dr. Dog album and this one, and while you weren't on tour. Toby, you released your album, Military Applications. Scott, you put out Shebang with Scott McMicken and the ever-expanding universe. But Scott, you also worked with Big Thief in 2020 on their album, Dragon New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You, at your old house in Tucson, Arizona. And it seemed like that was an eye-opening experience for you. Could you talk about what you learned from working with Big Thief?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan and have just so much admiration for how present they are with the way they play music and how meaningful it is. And that had been true prior to this experience. But then I was like there in the room witnessing like what that actually looks like when the decisions are being made. And it was just really free and trusting and supportive and loving and all of these more intangible things, but at the end of the day, like by far the most definitive characteristics of what makes for good soulful music, in my opinion. You can obsess over all the details and all of the technology and all the aesthetic principles or all the expectations or whatever, but if you can secure for yourself a room of loving people that are sharing that support and are fearless about what might come about from it, then you just open like a whole kind of realm of possibility that just is where I love art. I was still living in Tucson. I later moved and then have now found myself in a situation where I have more outlets for just getting together and playing and focusing primarily on just like the purest aspects of collaboration and recognizing how prohibitive our own fears and ideas of ourself are when it comes to like making music.
I know that you produced this album, the new Dr. Dog album, which I don't think you have produced a Dr. Dog album before. Why did you want to step into that role for this one?
Well, I mean, it was, again, everything I feel like we make the meaning after the fact most of the time, you know? You just kind of roll with what's intuitive. And in essence, it struck me as maybe the time to do that, one, because across the board, we were reevaluating the way we were talking and interacting and realizing there's real strength in owning certain roles. That doesn't diminish anyone else's role. We've always operated with such a strong democratic kind of core. But you also realize after many years, sometimes you're serving that idea in lieu of a better idea or something. And it's not like I'm saying I had a better idea here. I'm just saying I sensed that as a band, we were all willing to kind of look at things differently. And that felt like a symbolic way to say things were happening differently. And really, that's the more abstract answer. The more specific answer was that I basically just posed to the band that we do essentially exactly what I had been doing, which was bring my studio track in an 8-track fashion without any ideas of overdubs so that we could specifically focus on that moment of being together and playing and intuition and trust. Then go home our separate ways, which was a different kind of chapter for the band, which was that we were all able to do the kind of post-production and overdubbing things on our own, in our own space, without everyone breathing down each other's neck. We're often always working in the same room at the same time from start to finish with every record we've ever made. And then we got back together after everyone had time to do that, to do our vocals together, and then go mix it with somebody who I'd been working with a lot too, named Matt Ross Spang in Memphis. So it was essentially just this operating system that I had created for myself in North Carolina. And it just seemed responsible to acknowledge that as a producerly role.
Definitely.
We're going to hear you play Love Struck now from the new Dr. Dog self-titled album. Is there anything you want to tell us about the song before we hear it?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, yeah.
All right, Dr. Dog with Love Struck, live for the World Cafe.
We've got tonight, we've got eternity. You've got me taking my time. We took a look and we was guaranteed. You've got the rest of my life. You've got the rest of my life. And I can't believe that you came to me in the great big sea where the lightning strikes. And I can't get over how we met on another plane in a silhouette. See where
open book filled with fine white lines. Da, da, da. She's an open book filled with fine white lines. Her cards, her crystal ball. She can see for miles and miles and days and days. And though she says she can't tell your future, well, I know it's gonna happen that way. Anyway, she ignores the rain outside her window, and she stands to turn off the lights. But I can still see her fingers. They're covered in a dust of fine white light. She's an open book filled with fine white light. She's an open book filled with fine white light. She says she has her switch to kill the pain. I believe her, but I don't say why. I can't explain. She turns it on and on and off, and then she walks away. She said, if you can see what I see, you see you're doing great. Well, I can't see it all reflected in her eyes, a crystal ball. She remakes the chaos, yeah. She makes it small, but there are those so intolerably dull that all they see is fisted fangs and nothing more. Oh, she gives them all a name, tells them it's okay, tries from a crescent moon, painted strong and bright, comes to mind. She saves it all, she's the angel of time. There's nobody stranger. She'll open you up if you open angels above. Oh yeah, she's the angel of grace. She's the angel of answers. She'll tell you what you need to hear. But most of all, she's the angel of the fine white line. She's an open book filled with fine white light. She's an open book filled with fine white light.
Performing live for the World Cafe, that was Dr. Dog. That song's from their new self-titled album. It's called Fine White Lies. I'm Raina Douris, joined by Scott and Toby of Dr. Dog today. Okay, so you talked before a bit about how you made the album sort of 3 steps, and I want to dig into those a little bit. First, you all went to a cabin in Pennsylvania, in rural Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Could you set the scene for us? Could you tell us what it was like there?
It's pretty great. It's my uncle's cabin up in towards World's End in Fortsville, and we just took all the furniture out and put it in the U-Haul that Scott had brought with all his gear in it, and it looked like a studio. Like, it's got wood walls and it sounded incredible. And the best thing was, it was all one room. So we're all in one room, but we had the door open the whole time, which is awesome. You You're never in a studio where it's just like a bunch of windows and the front door is open. Yeah. And we would just get done as we, be like, I think that might be the take. And then we go and hang out on the porch where we just had stereo speakers out there. So we just listen to the mix on the porch, walking around. You're like, yeah, that's the take. Let's go in.
Oh, that sounds so nice.
It was.
There's
it was
not
great.
like somebody eating like carrots out of a plastic container behind you in a gray control room.
We did eat carrots, though. I don't want you to think
there were carrots.
There were carrots.
Why was it important to kind of get away from everything for that phase of making the album, to go isolate yourself somewhere?
It's always been, I feel like, I definitely work better that way, to not try to split time between doing band stuff and music stuff and doing home life too. It's just, it's really hard for me to, once I'm doing one thing, it's really hard for me to do anything else. I think you're probably pretty similar, knowing you.
Scott, do you feel the same way?
He's better.
Yeah. I remember us talking as well about how, because like I said, it was like I brought my whole studio, so it would have made sense maybe to just come to my house rather than me.
Could have done that.
Maybe save some time.
But it was also kind of agreed, like, I think it'd be better for everybody if we were just all somewhere else. We hadn't hung out really. I mean, we'd seen each other in passing on the previous couple of years, but
coolest part.
The subtext was just like, let's go hang. I've also really come to believe that much like all that other stuff, the interior worlds that get in the way of anybody trying to express themselves and the complexity of all that, I think that studios themselves are almost like this kind of rigorous context you put yourself in.
Yeah.
That the more you can, like, the way I've been thinking about it in my life is just like taking this kind of monstrous presence that is the studio and all that happens to your head the moment you walk in there, and then kicking that out, just trying to kind of like get the studio out of your way, basically. And this day and age, and arguably any day and age, if with the right equipment, you don't really need those kind of padded walls and that isolation and stuff. Certainly not for the kind of music we're trying to make. I really honestly believe that's where at least we as musicians are going to be our best selves, when there isn't any sort of pretense that you're in this precious environment designed with millions of dollars to create the capturing of sound. That can really just like
we did entertain the idea of going to studios, and then everything we looked at, we're just like, I don't want to be in a studio.
Studios are awful.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Yeah.
Okay,
and they're run by no talent schlubs.
Yeah.
And anybody that goes in them is a hack.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stand by that till the day I die.
Same.
You heard it here. World Cafe will no longer be recording in a studio after this.
Is this a studio?
No, well, usually we record in a little
I'm so mad.
studio. We're moving to a cabin. I'm speaking with Dr. Dog on World Cafe. So after the 5 days at the cabin, you all go home. You have all these tracks that you'd worked on. And then you worked independently and added your own stuff to it on your own. How does that work? How do you make sure you're not stepping on anyone's toes when you do that?
Yeah, no, I think we're so used to each other. Like, we kind of know what everybody, at least the ways in which they'll likely be focusing. And we made sure to this whole chapter, this whole do things remotely from home in phase 2 was also a brand new thing. And it required that many of us catch up on the technology to make that even possible. So we put a lot of effort into figuring out how to do that efficiently, how to communicate about what was being added, what people might like to see happen if somebody wanted you to do something else or whatever. So we all, I think in various ways, benefit from being able to take all the time and go at your own speed with doing stuff. Sometimes you just want to do things over and over again or whatever to get cozy with it. And then there's a certain, again, interior prohibitive concepts. There's a social anxiety about collaboration, being in a studio, where if you're just sitting there doing something over and over again, you kind of sense everybody might be resenting you, or you project that upon them, and this whole new strain occurs. So that was really kind of the ethos of it. Why we did it that way was so that everybody could just enjoy their own time and their own pace for whatever it is, explorations they wanted to do with the tunes after years of always being all in one room together for every single decision.
Right. And then to finish things off, you were in one room together
Yeah.
again, and you came back to Philly and did it in the studio here in Philly, kind of where it all started, and you sang harmonies together. That's kind of sweet. How did that feel to come back and do that part all together?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the. It's so fun to sing harmonies like that. It'd be so stupid to just overdub. It would feel traitorous. I mean,
It takes the joy out of it a little bit.
yeah, it's actually fun to do. So why would you not do that? So
We're going to hear you perform another song from the new album, and then we'll come back and we'll keep on talking. The song is called Still Can't Believe. Could you talk about how this song came together through that process?
Yeah, I mean, this one came together in a way that is possibly, I mean, I love the whole album, but just the way this one happened was so unique where,
it's like a morning song.
yeah, we all woke up and we're like in our boxer shorts and like sitting there and like stirring oatmeal and stuff, and like it is not a studio, and I'm just going. And then one by one, everybody came in and sat around, and we must have just looped that feel of that music for 15 minutes or something. At one point, I was like, wow, we should be recording this. That's why when you hear it on the album, it just kind of pops in out of nowhere. That's literally like when Kyle hit record on us, just like waking up and stuff. And so we just played it for a long time. And I really love like long, repetitive like vibes, you know, like I like just like hanging out in one zone. So I was really happy just all of us looping through that. And then I went home and I sang over top of that. And it felt wonderful to sing over that feel in the track.
This is Still Can't Believe, Dr. Dog, live for the World Cafe.
Life by the fire, out of the cold, the river that never gets old. Together we row, days into days, dancing the same toe to toe, standing up tall, 'cause I got it all, and nothing's been taken away. All that I was, all that I am, I finally understand. 'Cause you picked me up, you spun me around, and now I'm beginning to think, well, if this ain't love, love ain't real. And if this ain't right, right is wrong. 'Cause I'm not alone. You're on my side. I still can't believe we've arrived.
You just heard Dr. Dog performing Still Can't Believe from their new self-titled album on World Cafe. I'm Raina Douris, talking to Scott and Toby from Dr. Dog. This is, I believe, your 11th album. Why
Sure.
was this the right time for a self-titled album? Usually that comes, I feel like, earlier on in a band's career.
There was a reason. Do you remember there? It seemed kind of funny, but there was like a deeper reason.
Well, we're in a band called Dr. Dog.
That was part of it, yeah.
Well, I think that what I recall about it, it wasn't like our first thing, but we landed there eventually. So, and I remember when we did land there, thinking another through line. Everything's back engineered. You figure it out later, but there was so much emphasis going into the process of making the album, and then the way the process unfolded, that felt like it was about more than just making an album. It was about us, and it was about being back together, and it was about reevaluating our methods, and it was about trying new things and acknowledging deeper truths about our relationships and our struggles and our art. And so it almost so much so that I kind of forgot there was an album, in a way, as silly as that sounds. Like it wasn't like a strong, cohesive, thematic thing, or there wasn't some stylistic vibe we were particularly honed in on. It was just, let's first focus on ourselves, who we are, and what we've become after all this time together, and play with that, and let what comes of that come of that. So there's no concept to this album other than us, looking at our situation more closely with the benefit of having had some time away from it. And so it kind of felt like it was just mostly about us doing our thing and trying to grow.
I want to come back to that in a second, but this will be the first album, I guess, you've ever released where you aren't gearing up to tour it and promote it on a tour. I mean, you're obviously playing shows. You just played a big one here in Philly. What does it feel like to not be gearing up to promote this record like that?
Pretty good, actually. I gotta be honest with you. And I would love to play these songs live, obviously, and I'd love to work them out, and probably someday we will. But there's there's so much that goes into touring like that is just not that cool. and promoting and all that kind of stuff. It's just a lot of stuff that you didn't necessarily sign up for when you decided you were going to be a full-time musician, but it's stuff you got to do. And it's kind of nice to be like, oh, just put this album out on our own label and just not do anything. But I would love to play these songs if you will have me.
Well, we've been enjoying hearing them today. My guests are Dr. Dog. This is World Cafe. You two started playing together a long, long time ago. And we've talked a lot about taking a break, coming back, and appreciating the sort of newness of like the renewal feeling of coming back together. But when you did take that break and come back to the studio together, I want to ask you both this. What did you see or realize about each other when you were back there together again that made you appreciate your friendship?
It's easy to I'm getting emotional, but it's easy to kind of like get codependent, and sort of like we've been sharing this band. We're both songwriters. We both have strong ideas. We both have strong personalities. And so it's impossible not to kind of constantly be weighing yourself against the other. That's not really healthy. I can see that objectively. And so by realizing that the pursuit of our togetherness and growth has more to do with just a clean and clear look at each other, minus what that means in reflection, felt like a radical new way after all these years of working so closely together and being both songwriters with both our own distinct personalities and goals and stuff. And so that's what feels newest to me, just getting out of that kind of intermingled, heavily emotionally enmeshed thing, just to see each other and to see the other band members for who they are, what they want, what they need, what works for them, rather than assume that if things aren't lining up according to how you want them, that's a problem for
Right.
you.
Yeah.
And that you're being let down on some level.
Yeah.
Right? Just see it more as evidence of who another person is, what they need, and work with that. We got a healthy friendship, and we have for a really long time. Like, this is all just really proactive, kind of like trying to continue to grow and trying to lower the threshold for the amount of tension and unnecessary pain that you subject yourselves to when you're so dependent on one another for something so abstract. So, yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Toby?
I agree about being dependent on something very abstract between the two of us. Can you say the question again one more time?
So
Or ask it, I guess?
after you sort of had this break, you've known each other for such a long time, you've played together for such a long time, you take a short break, and then you come back together and you create together again. What was something that you saw or that you realized that made you appreciate your friendship?
I guess just sort of to reiterate what Scott was saying, just the fact that we really do try to like get ahead of stuff. And I think that's really why we've been able to stay together for so long. It's like as soon as something comes up, just like I can't let this sit. Like it's not okay. Like this is not a good thing. And Scott is very good at like just pretty much just saying it and then addressing it. And it's something that can be frustrating, but it's also just kind of like, well, no, this is actually the thing that needs to happen, because if this didn't happen, then we'd just be wallowing, in some kind of like ether where everybody feels slighted. We're just like, yeah. And I do think we've often joked, me and Scott, about like, I feel like we'd be such closer friends if we haven't been in band together for like 30 years. And it's kind of a joke, but it's actually not that funny. Like, that means that like we probably should be working on being better at being in a band. Always, always. And yeah, it's just nice to know. It's just cool to have somebody be like, understand that and to get you.
You're going to perform Hard at Races next. Why
The
is this
weirdest version.
the weird? Did you say the weirdest
It's
version?
going to be the weirdest version.
Why?
Look at us. There's two dudes.
Tis no banger.
There's no band.
All right. Well, you know what? Take it away. Make it weird. This is Dr. Dog, Hard at Races on World Cafe.
And we're slow to acknowledge the knots in our laces, hard it races. And we go back to where we moved out to the places, hard it races. Well, I bought it in a can, and I started with my fingers singing da 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 da. Threw it out the window. Lately you've been tan, suspicious for the winter, with your da 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 da, legs like little splinters. And we're slow to acknowledge the knots in our laces, hard it races. Then we go back to where we moved out to the places, hard it races. Well, I sold it to a man, then I threw him out the window. Da 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 da, made his wife a widow. Hard it race alone, how to 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 race alone. Legs like little splinters. Bum, 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 bum. Legs like little splinters. Ought to race alone, 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 ought to race alone.
Thank you.
Performing in front of a live World Cafe audience, Dr. Dog, Heart It Races. Dr. Dog have a new self-titled album out now. I've been speaking with Scott McMicken and Toby Leaman of Dr. Dog today. Scott,
Actually,
Toby.
Can I just correct one thing? It's actually not self-titled. It's called Dr. Dog.
Please explain the difference.
The title of the album is
Dr. Dog.
It's this is
interesting.
This
I don't
is the
think
part I think that's funny. It's the name of the record. The name of the album is Dr. Dog by Dr. Dog.
Whoa.
If you look at the record, it says Dr. Dog twice because it's the band and the name of the record.
You know what? Fair enough. They're doing something brand new. Dr. Dog. Their album is called Dr. Dog.
Yes, exactly. There you go. That's it.
Always two.
Always two.
Toby, Scott, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
I really enjoyed it. I'm Raina Douris, back in a moment with more World Cafe.
And we're slow to acknowledge the knots in our laces, heart it races. Then we go back to where we moved out to the places, heart it races.